These are some rough recent experiences demonstrating why you shouldn't go trusting your 401k too much. From day one, I always had the hardest time saving for retirement. It seemed so far in the future, and I enjoyed what I might call a zestful lifestyle, and that made it very hard to save for that long future way out there in the distance, and perhaps short myself of fun I could be having today for this future that was far from guaranteed. All that said, at my first adult job after college, I did have a 403B, which is similar to a 401k. It was just a not-for-profit company. And even though I was contributing nothing to it, the company was putting in 9% of my salary. I was busy focusing on paying my school debt off, and I was also blowing about $1,300 a month partying, which, yes, that's a whole nother topic. But they were putting in this money, and all I had to do was stay for 5 years to be vested. And when I left that company, it was at 6 years, so I was fully vested, had a decent amount of money in there, and I thought, hey, they've been doing a decent job, I'll just leave it in here. So that was my first mistake, as you'll see in a few minutes. I trusted them, and I left that money in there over all these years. When I left my second job, and I'm not including the bike shop because White Chrome Customs did not have the best retirement benefits, but when I left my second job, somewhere here, I started in like 06, and I had some period here through 10. And in that period, I had a 401k, but I really didn't have much interaction on it. Actually, totally forgot about it, as embarrassing as it is to say. So after I started at the third company, out here in 10, that is where I heard later from the retirement company at company 2 that I had some money in there, and I rolled that over to an E-Trade account. So I put that in E-Trade into an IRA. So that went down here, and I invested it myself in several funds that I thought would be good investments, and it actually performed pretty well over the years. But that was an IRA, and you have to be very careful when you transfer from something because you want to make sure it stays pre-tax and you don't take the tax hit. So it stays as a retirement fund. So that did very well over the years. While I was at company 3, I also did something else smart, not realizing how important it was at the time, but I always put in the minimum amount that I could to get the maximum company contribution. So what that means is, let's say a company says, we'll match you $1 per dollar up to 8% of your salary. Then I would put in that 8% and I would get the maximum from the company. I would not put a dime more because I only wanted to put in enough to get their max contribution and then have the rest of it up to my own use. Now, I'm not saying always minimize your retirement savings. I'm simply saying from a 401k perspective, I found that it was better to keep it down to the least amount you could get to maximize the company contribution, and you can do your other savings and investment and Roth IRAs and everything else on the side, but I was keeping minimum money in the 401k. And I'll tell you why this got to be really important later. A few years into the job at company 3 is when Sunshine passed away. We had a will. We had 50-50 executors, her sister and myself. We had an estate attorney and everything in place. And when it came time to try to release the funds in her retirement, her 401k, all we kept getting were more questions. We had the lawyer dealing with their lawyers. It was still a constant battle. It wasn't until our attorney was told by that 401k company that they would not accept the Texas state court documents that our attorney had to threaten to sue them in order to get those funds released. This was 1 year after she'd passed away. Now, if you think about it, the 401k company makes more money doing that because now they've taken this amount of money that was back here. They have a whole year before they give it up, and they're just giving us whatever's in there, but they've made more money by holding that longer. So that's another shady thing that these companies do. Now, out here in 2020, COVID hit. And what did that do to our retirement? It dropped it a big chunk. I was busy going through health stuff with the heart, procedures, whatever else. And so by the time things kind of settled, and this is my fault, and I checked, I had lost, I think, about 20% of my retirement fund. So a big mistake here is that I trusted that this company was looking out for my interests, the retirement company, and they clearly were not. They're still getting paid. They're not going to go in there and do anything. They put that on you as the employee to make changes in your risk profile or move things around. I had a buddy that was smart, watched it, instantly saw that the market was tanking, and put all his money in cash for a while to let it settle before he started finally buying back in and then caught it on the upswing. That was the smart way to do it. My way was not. So I took about a 20% haircut on my 401k right here. In fact, I lost way more through my 401k than I did through my own E-Trade IRA that I'd been doing as far as a percentage goes. Here's where it gets a whole lot worse. A year or two ago, when I started getting closer to the health issues and all that, I thought, okay, why don't I take the 403B from company one and my IRA here, and I'm going to put it with a new financial manager that I trust, that helps buddies of mine I've known for years, etc., and let me consolidate these. So it was very easy to take my E-Trade IRA and put that into a new personal IRA. So I put that in here, and I intended to put the company 1403B in. When I called them to ask, now you have to remember at this time, 2022 or so, whatever it was, we're talking about, this is 04 to 22. So this is 18 years, basically, that it's been since I left that company, and they told me that they could give me 85% of it, but that the other 15% would be doled out for 9 years. And I fussed at them and said, this is ridiculous. It's my money. It's been there. I left the company almost 20 years ago. Why are you hanging on to it? And all I got was, that's just the plan it is. And I said, look, I'm terminal. I will never see 9 years from now. And they really didn't care because that's what their little book says. And they said, that's just too bad. So I was able to take the 85%, and now I have to mess with this last 15% coming out over 9 years, which means it'll be part of the estate for my sisters later, and they'll have to deal with that. The irritating part about this is, had I known that this was a thing, I never would have imagined this. Had I known about that, I could have cashed out right when I left the company and had those 9-year distributions, which all would have been in the past by now and taken care of. I didn't know. I trusted them to leave it sit there, and there it is. So even after leaving a company for almost 2 decades, you think it's your money, you still don't control it. They do. The next event is probably the most disturbing of any of these to me. So company 3, in recent times, I'll kind of set this out here, but basically if we blow this out at the beginning of 2024, I went on short-term disability for the heart. I was having more tests done, more procedures, etc. So at that point, I went on short-term disability, which lasts 6 months on my plan. During this period, I called the 401k company and I asked them, how do I get a hold of my 401k monies so that I have a shot to maybe enjoy some of it before I pass? What I was told is you have 3 options to access that 401k money in my situation. The first of them is to turn 59 and a half. Well, that doesn't work for me because I'm probably never going to see that date. That's chosen because 59 and a half is the age where people can early retire and avoid the 10% penalty tax. So that doesn't work for me. The second option was to quit. Well, of course it is. And here's why they do that. Because in that case, let's say you go from short term and then you get on long term after that, and your 401k is hanging there. They want to hold that 401k away from you because they're on the hook to pay for your long-term disability and your insurance and whatever until the time of death, right? Well, they don't want to pay that because they're not getting any use out of you at that point. You've stopped being productive for them. And so holding the 401k hostage is a way for them for you to eventually say, okay, I've got X amount of money in here. So there's some math that eventually works out where you may say, let's say I've got $1 million just for round numbers in your 401k, and you realize you're only going to live 2 more years at $100,000 a year. Well, it's actually worth it for you. And this is someone like me who doesn't have wife and kids and stuff. It's just me. Well, at some point, it's worth it for me to say, okay, fine, I'll quit. I'll take my 401k, and then the company's happy because they're not paying your long-term disability or insurance anymore. So they use your own money as leverage against you because they know at some point it's going to be worth it for you to quit and get your 401k. I don't like the idea of doing that because it gets them off the hook. So that's really not, and plus you lose your insurance, you have to deal with that. It's not a great situation, right? It makes me extremely unhappy to say the least. Third one is almost worse, but the third option is Social Security disability. So as I was getting close to the end of my short term, the benefits office, myself, everybody was well aware that my situation had gone to officially being labeled as terminal congestive heart failure. Therefore, I went on long-term leave without return to work because it's terminal. And they being the company 3, provided a service saying, this company will help you get on Social Security disability. So I worked with that company, and at first I thought, well, that's nice they provide that. Then I realized why they're doing this. It's not to be nice, it's not to help me, it's to help themselves. Because let's say your long-term disability is $80K a year, and at some point, if you get Social Security, and let's just say that's $40K a year for round numbers, that means that now the company, instead of paying $80K, they now only have to pay $40K the rest of your lifespan. That's why they're so motivated to get you on Social Security disability. And in order to improve the likelihood you're going to do this, they again use your own money, your 401k, as the carrot to dangle. And if you get Social Security, then they will release your 401k. So after filing for Social Security disability in this time frame, I called the 401k company back. I said, look, I've filed for Social Security. I've received a letter from them saying they received it and they're reviewing it. I am terminal. There should be no issue getting this. However, it's supposed to be about a year before Social Security will be awarded because the Austin office is so backed up. That means that if I don't last a year, I will never get my 401k to enjoy. What they told me is that this whole criteria is the company doing it, not the 401k company, but our company puts these requirements in here, and they require one of those things to match before they'll even look at it. So the 401k folks can't even submit to them for approval until those are met. The other part of it is, while I was working with the firm to file for Social Security, that firm gave me a form to fill out with my bank information on it, because if, let's say, a year down the road, Social Security awards out here, they could very well back pay all the way from my entire short-term and long-term leave, because that's where I started being out for work, was back February 1st. All that money gets paid to me, but is actually owed to the company, let's say. So the company wants to get their fingers on that as fast as possible. That's why they have this form. I did not fill out the form, of course, because I don't feel good about giving them my bank information to pull money out like that. And I'm holding on to it because in the event that I get the Social Security award letter and I'm still alive, that money, that back pay, is the only leverage I have to encourage them to release my 401k, because I'm not convinced that once I get the award, they're just going to send me instantly the amount of that money. They may delay it, just like I've seen them do before. So I have not filled it out. You get a weekly automated call reminding you that, hey, you better fill out that form with your bank information, or else we can't immediately reimburse your company if Social Security is awarded to you. So the company doesn't want to delay so much as a day for the money that they feel they have coming, but they are perfectly fine holding the 401k that I've worked and saved for 14 years over my head to try to save themselves a few bucks. Since this, I emailed our HR department internally, and I explained the situation. I said, I've done everything you guys want. I'm waiting for Social Security. I'm at risk of passing any day at this point. So all I'm asking for is the money that I've earned and saved to be able to enjoy a little bit before I die. And so I'm asking for a waiver on these requirements to try to get access to it. Sent that email, got a, so sorry, we'll look into it. Check back a week later, so sorry, we'll look into it. I've emailed the Texas Workforce Commission. All I got was a link to a Texas employee handbook that was completely useless. And so at this point, I really only see two possible options other than getting Social Security award letter. One of them is to see if any financial institutions offer a reverse retirement. So you may have heard of reverse mortgage, where as you get closer to the end of your lifespan, you can get money and then the house turns over to this institution at the end of your life. Well, maybe somebody would do it with this. The other option is, of course, to seek legal assistance and try to take that approach. And in either case, I would be paying more of my own money purely so that I can access my own money. I'm not telling you that the 401k doesn't have some benefits, such as the employee contribution. I'm not telling you not to save for your retirement. I'm simply telling you, be careful about how much you trust your 401k and your companies, because possession is 90% of it, as we've all heard, and you've seen a couple big examples here of where once the company has that money, it can be very difficult to get control of it. Doesn't matter that you worked for it, you earned it, you saved it. They have it in their little hands and they're going to use it against you, unfortunately. So just be smart about it when you do it. If you haven't done so, please click the link below to subscribe, click the little bell for notifications, and let's use casual sense.